everyone, and welcome to this week's Software Success live presentation where we talk all things software. So we are talking about Dime's Patch and Applique Maker today. So if you are already a Dime software user, tell me over in the chat what pieces of software that you have. If you're new to Dime's programs, let me know that too. I always love to hear what you guys have to say. So if you are new to our Software Success, we hold these every first and third Thursday of each month, and we talk about different Dime software every month. And again, we're featuring Patch and Applique Maker this month. And I do want to point out some of the things that I'm going to show you will still work in other Dime pieces of software. So each piece has its own specialty features, but there's a lot of commonality, like how you select a design, how you add a design to your screen, how you align, how you resize. Those common features amongst the software, you still can learn from each one of these presentations even if you don't own the program that I'm showing. And I try to make sure to point out those differences and those commonalities as we go. But of course, if I forget, then make sure that you ask those questions. So we love to hear what you've got to say. So I see a lot of people piping in, a lot of very familiar names. Thank you all for joining. So we have Julie from Michigan. Thanks for joining. Chris Vick, thanks for joining. Chris, she's a frequent flyer, or he's a frequent flyer. Jan from Bremerton, Washington. I used to be up there in the Puyallup area. So welcome, Jan. Tracy from Scottsdale, Arizona. My friend Joanne Banco over at Let's Go So. Thanks for joining, Joanne. We have Kay. She said she's so excited. She's had it for 2 years and did nothing with it. It's time. Thank you, Ashley. You're awesome. Thank you so much for those really nice words, Kay. I can totally relate. Sometimes we get excited about something, we make the purchase, but then we don't get around to using it. So hopefully this will help you get started today. So Laura Parks from Lincoln, Nebraska, thanks for joining. Jeanette from South Carolina. So good to see all of you guys. And then make sure if you've got questions to ask over here in the chat. I always like for you, if you will, put just several question marks before the question. It just makes it easier to pick out of the comments when they're flying by. So that'll make it easier as we go. And I'll stop several times to answer your questions. So Harriet Ann Palmer, thanks for joining. She's my neighbor here. I just live just barely south of her. Thanks for joining Dawn over at Creative Appliques. She's also a frequent user of our software. Thank you so much for joining. And Palma says she has PEP and PAM. PEP is our Perfect Embroidery Pro. It's our full feature digitizing and editing software, and Patch and Applique Maker is what we're talking about today. And because Palma owns both of them, she can use those features together, which actually makes it even more powerful when you own multiple pieces of our program. It puts all the features together inside of your embroidery tool shed. And so Dawn, she's got PEP, My Quilt Planner, and Cut and Stitch. So that's one of our new programs that hopefully we'll get to here soon. So thanks for joining, everyone. I appreciate it. So Gail says she's from Concord, Michigan. She's new to Dime software. Excited to find out what happens here. Well, thank you so much for joining, Gail. So here we go over things that you can do with your Dime programs, and we go through a different one each month, and they all have a little bit different features. So I think you're going to learn a lot. So A. Reichert, thanks for joining. So she says she has almost all of the software except for Word, Art, and Stitches. That's fantastic. And she's loving these Tuesday classes. So, well, thank you for the nice words. I really appreciate that. I love software, as you guys know. And so I love sharing with you to try to make it easy. I want everyone to love their programs as much as I love mine. So, okay. So Laura already had a question. So she says, I can't find how to transfer a design from embroidery tool shed to USB stick. She said, I have my block piecer, my quilt embellisher, my lace maker, and my quilt planner. That's a very nice selection, Laura. So Laura, to get it to a USB stick, you just click File and Save As, and then choose the USB stick from the drop down menu. And so tell me, Laura, are you using a Mac or a PC? Because that may be a little bit of a difference there. And then Chris says she has Patch and Applique Maker, and making a patch in this program would be good to use for a cap. Yes, absolutely. You could make a patch that you stitch right onto a cap, or you can make a patch freestanding and then sew it onto your cap with this program. So absolutely. I love that you guys already have questions. So, hey, look at that. Our friend Doreen Wilcoxon too, from Embroidery Gardens. You guys know her, and she said she loves Pam. Thanks for joining, Rain. Okay, so today, again, Patch and Applique Maker, and we're going to talk about how you can easily create a patch and an applique embroidery design in this program. And it is super simple. You can use lots of built-in features. You can customize these pre-made patches and appliques as well, which I'll go over. So even though it's built in, you're not just stuck with what you see. So I'll talk about that. And then you can bring in your own designs and make that into a patch. Or if you want, you can make it an applique instead of a patch. So we'll talk about those differences coming up here in just a bit. So let's head over to the Patch and Applique Maker program and get started with how to use this. And then again, if you have questions, make sure you're asking over the chat. If you'll put those question marks before you start typing, it'll just help me pick that out of the lineup. Okay, and so Laura Parks, thank you for answering. She says she has a PC. So you're going to do File, Save As, and then just choose the location of your USB stick after you plug it in. And I'll point that out when I go over here. I am working on my Mac today, so that is slightly different, but it's still, the software itself all works exactly the same, whether you're using it on PC or Mac. But I'll talk about the save process a little bit more. Okay, so let's just talk about inside of Patch and Applique Maker. All of these icons, that we have in all of our dime software, each have their own function. And I'll give you a little tidbit of information. When you have one of the dime programs, usually the icons right under the new page and the open and the save, these icons that are in this first area, it may be 4 of them, it may be 8 of them, depending on which software you're using. But if you start here under that new page, then you're going to usually see the features that are included with that software. And in this case, in Patch and Applique Maker, so that's the program I'm using today, we have these 4 options here that are unique to this program. So if you have other dime software, you won't have these exact icons, but you might have a catalog, but it have different designs in it. So let's first start about selecting a design, because these 4 here are the ones that are unique to this program as far as the design selection. And then we're going to talk about some other ones that are unique to this program over here as we get a design on the screen. So let's start by selecting a design. So there's 4 different ways we can get started with these icons. The first one, if we click on the Applique Design Catalog, it opens up this catalog. You can see we've got lots of categories over here, and each one has a plus sign next to it. So if we click on the main category, it brings up the designs that's in that category. Now, these designs that you see in that main category are applique designs, but applique designs a lot of times make good patches, and I'll talk about the difference between the two. If I push this plus sign, I have a category called parts. And parts means that it breaks these designs up if it can, so that if you wanted to use certain parts of it, you don't have to try to separate it. So if I click on the parts here, you can see here the moon and the star and the heart and the triangle, particularly. If I go back over to the main category, those are the shapes that are part of this mobile here. And so it does break it up if it would make a good shape on its own. And then the patch section are designs that would make a good patch. Now, let's go down to these little cute animals here, and I want to talk about the difference between an applique and a patch. So I'm going to select this butterfly here. Let's start with this one. And this butterfly is an applique design. If we watch our slow redraw, it's going to stitch the placement and the tack down and then stitch the remaining part of our design for our applique. Now, this is not a good patch design because of these satin areas here that are the antenna of the butterfly. Those, if you stitch this as a freestanding applique or a patch, these could possibly dissolve or disintegrate when you stitch those on water soluble stabilizer. And let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go back to the catalog and let's choose this little whale here. And I'm going to move him over out of the way. I'm going to double click my zoom tool. This is a tip for any dime software. If you double click your zoom tool, it's a shortcut to zoom to fit everything on your screen. Okay, now look at the whale. The whale does not have any satin stitches or fill stitches that are outside of that satin line. So we could stitch this whale on a an item with a water soluble stabilizer, and it would make a great patch. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense between the two. Now this butterfly, let's go a step further. Both of these are applique designs, but the whale would make a good patch because you could stitch this with fabric in the whale on a water soluble stabilizer that just washed away, and you'd be left with a freestanding applique, which is really what we call our patch. Now there is something that we recommend different before the finishing stitch, but we'll get to that. But now let's talk about the butterfly here. This butterfly, you fell in love with it and you really need it to be a patch. The antenna are not great for a patch, but you can turn this into a patch. So if you select the item, use this create outline feature that's up here on our toolbar right next to the t-shirt. The create outline feature is something that is built into several of Dime's software. And what it does is it allows you to select a outline distance. I'm actually going to do about 1/4 of an inch here, or do 1/4 of an inch, not about. So 1/4 of an inch. And then when I click preview, you can see it puts a line around my design. So I can actually make that outline. I could fill that with my patch material. So then my antenna are taken care of and they're not freestanding when I rinse away a stabilizer. So hopefully that makes sense. Now here's another little tip. So the joins has 3 different options. I can choose bevel, round, or mitered. Right here on the top of this piece, it is really jagged looking because of the shape of this area that it's trying to trace around. So if you go to the round option and click preview, it'll smooth that out. So play with these options because the different one works different in a different instance, and it also might give you a different look that you're going for. So I choose the round. It'll smooth that out for me. And now I'm going to just click OK. And it will add that outline around my butterfly. Now, you guys have heard me say this before. If I go over to my sequence view here and click the plus sign, underneath that outline, it says artwork and 0. Now, I know that's hard to see on the screen. Hopefully you guys are watching on a really big screen and can see that, but it does say artwork and 0 next to it. That means it is not stitches. Artwork is just like a clip art or drawing, something like that, and it's really a vector artwork outline. But the 0 means that there's no stitches. So to make this butterfly be a patch, we want that artwork outline to be a satin stitch for our patch. And it would be ideal if we had a placement and a tack down line so that we could place down our patch material and trim it away after it tacks it down. So I would use the applique feature up here to convert that. So my outline is selected. I'm going to click applique. And now I have a patch design that the patch material is going to be in this blue area. And then you could use applique fabric for the wings if you want, and the body of the little butterfly here. So now let me select that outline and let's actually add a colored fabric so that you'll see what I mean. So let's do our slow redraw. So if we watch the stitch out, remember we've got our butterfly, which is an applique. And then my, because it's on the screen, same screen, my whale is stitching. But look here, that patch area actually stitches last. And you guys know from just doing your regular everyday embroidery that we would actually need that outline to stitch first if we were going to put some patch material there to make it a freestanding patch. So I'm going to go to my sequence view and just click this icon up here at the top that says move to back, and it will put it behind all of these stitches. So now when we watch that slow redraw again, it's going to stitch the placement and the tack down. Now this, I would put down my piece of poly patch twill. That's the applique material that we recommend, that the professionals use to make patches. And then that finishing stitch is going to go around just like an applique when it finishes, and when you trim it away to get that edge. And then it's going to stitch the remainder of your butterfly on top of that patch. Okay. Now to stitch a patch, you want to use a heavy water soluble stabilizer. So like our heavy water soluble stabilizer, heavy duty water soluble specifically is what we use that for, as patches. It's a clear stabilizer that when you stitch this patch and you rip it away, it leaves no white edges, no fuzzy edges. And so that is how you, what stabilizer you would use. And then you've got a freestanding applique or a patch. Now, the material that we recommend, the poly patch twill, is a sturdy material. That is what the professionals use. And then on top of that, if you have any applique area, like in the case of this butterfly, then you could just use your applique fabric. So because the patch material is going to make it sturdy. Okay, now I'm going to do my double click on my zoom tool. Let me remove this whale. And let's just look at this butterfly. I'm going to double click again and it'll put that right full in the screen there for me. Now, the difference between a patch and an applique, we just kind of talked about that. The patch is a freestanding type applique that you can then apply to another item. And in this case here, another thing that I would recommend for your patches is this satin stitch, the underlay stitches. I really like that to be more on set onto the patch material. So let's go over to the fabric and I'll show you what I mean. So this icon here is so that you can add colored fabric to see what it's going to look like. So the poly patch twill category, these are the colors that we have in our poly patch twill that we recommend making patches out of. So I'm just going to choose this purple one here. And then I'm going to select my stitch along the outside and let's make it purple as well. So I'm going to do a right mouse click on my purple color and it converts that to me. So I think that's pretty cute for our little patch here. And now when we stitch this out, I want you to pay attention here to the placement. We've got a run stitch placement and we have a run stitch tack down, so that when it tacks it down, you can trim the excess away. And then this satin stitch, let me zoom in here so that we can see this up close. This satin stitch, when it comes around right there, notice how the fabric, we're going to trim it against this second line that you see here. So notice how this satin stitch, the majority of it is stitching off the edge of my fabric. Because remember, this line that's on the inside is what we trimmed against. So the majority of these stitches are going to be off the fabric. For your applique, that's fantastic because if you don't get really close with your trimming, this is far enough away that it's going to cover your raw edges. So I love that. But a patch, because we are stitching this on a stabilizer that's going to be removed, I really prefer, and I feel like I get the best results when the majority of my stitches actually are on the patch fabric. So we have that already set for you. If you select your outline shape and then choose this little t-shirt icon to change the style. And from this drop down list, we have a default option, a marrow patch, which I'll talk to you about that in just a bit, a pre-cut applique, a pre-cut patch. And so I'm going to choose the pre-cut patch option here and click OK. And you can see that it looked like something changed on the screen. Well, it did. So let me do my slow redraw again. And you'll see that now we have a run stitch placement line, and now we have a zigzag tack down. So if you are pre-cutting your patch or your applique pieces, have you ever pre-cut and you pre-cut it exactly to the size of this line, and that next run stitch does not grab the edge of your fabric that you pre-cut? Well, this would solve that issue. So this zigzag tack down is going to make sure that your fabric has a nice tack down to it. Now notice whenever I come around with my satin stitch, it now stitches at the end. It's going to do the tack down, but it's going to leave that finishing stitch to the very end, because when we're stitching on our stabilizer for patches, we don't want to perforate that stabilizer too soon. So it's best to stitch your finishing stitch the very last stitch before you're ready to remove your patch from your stabilizer. So the t-shirt setting, let me go back over here. So this little t-shirt setting here, that is style. All of that changed just by me selecting the type of stitch out that I wanted to do. Now, let me zoom in and show you also, not only did it do all of those things, but let's zoom into this same area here. And I want you to notice that our stitches now stitch mostly on our applique or our patch fabric. So let me back up here. Now notice here that I've got the placement and the tack down, and those zigzag stitches are my tack down. This extra run stitch here is actually the underlay for the satin. And notice now the majority of my satin stitch actually is falling to the right hand side, which is going to be on my patch fabric. So that's things that you want to look for when you're making patches, but in your patch and applique maker, it happens all automatically. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's talk about if you do want to pre-cut this patch shape or your applique fabric, you're simply going to select the area that you want to pre-cut, click your cutter tool, and notice here, let me optimize the orientation or uncheck that. And you can see if I slide this over, that's the same shape as the patch outline for our butterfly. So the cutter tool will create a cut file for your digital cutter or a printable cut file, a PDF template, so that you can pre-cut that shape. You can also do that for your applique pieces or the patch shapes as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense when we're talking about these different shapes. So let's go back to a new page here. And let's do one more from this category, and I'm not going to talk so much about it. We're just going to go through the steps, and then I'll talk about saving it for Laura. So let's go back to the applique designs. For this one, I'm going to go under the patch options here and see what we've got. And look, that butterfly actually was already created for us, so we didn't even have to do it. Let me go to the parts. So this little dog face here, even though it doesn't say patch, it would make a good patch, because notice here that the outline is all enclosed in the satin. So this is an applique, but you certainly can save it and make a patch if you want. Okay, so now I'm going to click File and Save As. This is how you would get this design from your embroidery software, any embroidery software from Dime, and then save it to your USB stick. So when you click Save As, it's going to give you an option for locations to save. Now, yours may look a little bit different because remember, I'm using my Mac today, but you're looking for the drive number that is your USB stick. Okay, so when you are looking under your My Computer, choose the one that's your USB stick. So at this point, you should already have your USB stick inserted into your computer. When you insert it into your computer, it will come up as one of these letters. Now, I don't have one. These letters are different things on my computer. But if you don't know which one is which, if you pull that USB stick out and put it back in, you'll actually see it pop up here. So you'll know exactly which drive letter it is. So then I'm just going to save this on my C drive here under my C Dime Designs, just to show you that save process. But you would choose your USB stick instead of this location that I'm doing. I'm going to save it under my AJ Designs, and we're going to call it our puppy face. So I give it a name. And then here, this is very important. This design is going to automatically save in a C2S if I just click save. C2S is the native format for our software. Your embroidery machine will not read that format. So you must save this to your embroidery machine format if you're putting it on your USB to go for stitching. So from this drop down, and your drop down might be underneath if you're on your PC, you want to choose your embroidery machine format. Now, you guys know we have embroidery machine formats for all brands of machines out there. We've got Brother, Baby Lock, Bernina, Pfaff, Viking, Elna, Janome, Singer, and commercial formats as well. So you choose the format that works with your embroidery machine and then click save. Okay. So if you chose your USB stick, it's going right to your USB stick and you're ready to pull it out and go to your embroidery machine. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. If that did not clear it up, Laura, make sure you ask me another question if that doesn't seem to clear it up. Now, let's talk about where that design was saved. If you saved that design and you're trying to get back to it, the default is most of the time, unless you've done a lot of saving in some other areas, when you click save as, and you save your designs in this C Dime Designs folder, and I've got a folder just called AJ Designs. Let me show you how to easily get to that folder. So over here, we've got our sequence view, which is what shows us the breakdown of our stitch out. But we also have this little book at the bottom that is our design library. So the design library is usually where we save our designs so that we can easily bring those right into our software by clicking on them. And that's what I just did here, was open that butterfly. And then if I want to combine these two designs, I can open these flowers by dragging it onto the screen. Okay. So this location here is under your C Dime Designs. Now, if you can't remember that, just open your software, do a right mouse click on the word designs and say show contents. Now, what I'm showing you right here works in every single Dime software program. So no matter which one you have, even if it's the just embroidery tool shed with no additional programs, do a right mouse click, show contents, and that will open up the folder where those designs are saved. And so here I've got my AJ Designs, and there is my puppy face that I saved. So that's an easy way to locate your designs if you're saving in your library in your software. So okay, so now that we've talked about saving and we've talked about creating that patch design, let me see if we have any questions, and then we're going to talk about an applique design and adjusting the stitches around the outside. So let me scroll down through here and see if we have any questions. We still have people joining, so thanks, Annette, for joining us from Canada. So thanks so much. So Chris Vick said, would you go over making a patch and iron-on? I use Fuse It. So Chris, to make a patch and iron-on, we have a product called Patch Attach. I'm not sure what Fuse It is unless you're talking about Fuse Me, which is our Dime product. But we generally use the Patch Attach product because it's a stronger bond for your patches. So once you stitch your patch out, the Patch Attach product would then be fused onto the back of the patch, and then peel off the release paper, and then you could bond that to your item. So you're just fusing a fusible item onto the back of the patch to make it an iron-on patch. So hopefully that helps with that answer, Chris. And then Marcia says, to pre-cut with my cutting machine, do you have the ability to save to a thumb drive, or is it sent wirelessly? So you can save to a thumb drive. That's what I just went over for saving the design. And so for the cut files, it works the same exact way. Let me head back over there and I'll show you that cut file and saving it. So here, let's go back to our butterfly here. Okay, so if I click on the patch shape and I click my cutter option, I would click save, and then it comes up with this same menu. So to save this to your USB stick, locate the USB stick on your computer and then find that location and then give it a file name. So I'm going to call this our butterfly patch file. And then for the drop down menu, make sure you choose the format for your digital cutter. So here, instead of using an embroidery format, you want to use a cutting machine format. So most commonly, you might use an SVG or an FCM, but we do also have PLT and DX F formats that use some digital cutters use. So choose your digital cutter format when you're using the cutter tool and then click that save option. And you can see now it opened up where it saved it for me, and I've got butterfly patch SVG. So when I open up this file, I'm going to click and drag it into my software. You can see what I get. It's just that outline shape, and it is rotated for optimization. That's why it may not look like our butterfly, but this part here is where our antenna come out. So, and then our two wings. So when you save from that cut tool, the cutter tool, it's going to save this cut outline. It is the correct size. You do not have to make any adjustments to the size for this to work. So hopefully that helps Marcia with your cutting. So and Joanne says pre-cutting makes everything so smooth. I totally agree with that, especially if you're doing multiples, like she says. So pre-cutting a bunch at one time and then being able to just quickly get those stitched out. So, and Jennifer Alexander says heavyweight water slide stabilizer is great. She bought it from Dime. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Jennifer is a frequent flyer and owns lots of Dime software. So thank you for sharing. And Mary Ann, she's another frequent flyer. Thank you for joining, Mary Ann. She said she's used Pam several times and I've learned things again that I didn't know. So you're very welcome. So, and then Etta says the type of stabilizer do we use for a patch? It's called heavy duty water soluble stabilizer. We do have it on our dzgns.com site, but also, if you have a Dime dealer near you, check with them. They may have it in stock. If not, they can order for you. But we always really love to support our local dealers. So if you have a Dime dealer near, definitely check with them on that type of product too. So, and Ellen says, can you separate out the satin stitch from the last for the last item stitching? So if you choose the patch option, Ellen, it actually puts it in that order automatically. But I can show you how to manually do that if you want to. So I'll do that whenever I go back over. That's a really good question. Okay, so I think that's all the questions I see. Actually, here's one from Linda. So let's see what Linda says. So Linda says, my quilt embellisher is not transferring to my new computer. A message comes up that says many transfers have only loaded on my computer that died once. So what do I do? So if you're having trouble getting your My Quilt Embellisher to work on your new computer, I would contact technical support, Linda. That is their specialty. But you should be able to, on a new computer, what I would recommend is if you have the ability on your old computer to unregister, then when you go to your new computer, I would download and install the free embroidery tool shed. And then in your shopping area to the right-hand side, I would choose the option to activate. That's the easiest way to get that to install. So if you install the embroidery tool shed and then activate your My Quilt Embellisher, and if that doesn't seem to do it, then maybe check with technical support. That is their specialty for sure. So, and then Cynthia says, will this work with my Baby Lock Asante? It sure will. So Cynthia, we save to all embroidery machine formats. With your Asante, you would use a PES, and we actually have quite a few versions of PES that would work. And you save the file, take it to your Asante, and then it is ready to be stitched just like any other embroidery design that you purchased. So hopefully that helps you there. Okay, so let's see a couple of other questions here. So A. Reichert says, is it best to remove the heavy wash away stabilizer before fusing the patch? Yes, if you, once you're done, most likely, depending on your patch, a lot of that water soluble will be trapped in the stitches. But if you have any large areas of that water soluble, I do peel them away just because I want that bond of the fusible to be bonded to the back of the patch and not be bonded to the water soluble. But a little bit actually doesn't seem to affect it. I've fused over the things that are hard to get out or those small areas. So that's a really good question too. So Ellen says, what if you don't have a cutting machine? Which cutting do you see as user friendly? So Ellen, I would say the best option, if you have a local dealer that you can go and play with, I always would recommend doing that. A lot of times when we buy things online, we don't have as much support or, personalized help. But I can honestly say whichever one you go with, it's like a car. They all will get you from point A to point B. So they all cut, but they're just like cars or other brands of products. Each one has their own little different things. But all the brands that are commonly used, I would say most commonly Brother Scan and Cut, the Silhouettes Cameo or Portrait, and then also the Cricut line. All of those are great and they all work really well. And they all work perfectly fine with our software. So really good question. If you don't have a digital cutter, from our software, you can actually print a paper template and cut it out with your scissors. So you don't have to have a digital cutter. If you want to pre-cut, you could always pre-cut with your regular scissors if you'd like. So and then Carolyn says, can you bring in an outside design to the program? You absolutely can, Carolyn. Good question. So you would just say file and merge. I'll show you that when we go back. And then you could bring that design in. And then Carolyn, can you bring in a design? I thought there was another one. Yep, sorry here. Kay says, can you import SVG designs and change to FCM? You certainly can. So if you bring in an FCG file, you could just do file, save as, and choose the SVG format, and it definitely will do that. And then Tamara says, how does patch attach compare to heat and bond ultra hold? I can't lie, Tamara, I have not used specifically heat and bond ultra hold. So I'm not sure to speak to the uses of that product. I have used regular heat and bond, and compared to regular heat and bond, our patch attach is a product that is more of a industrial type bond. It's a very strong bond, more so than our normal bonding fabric. So it's meant specifically for patches and creates a really strong permanent bond, stronger than most of our iron-on fusibles. So, but I'm not specifically familiar with the ultra hold of the heat and bond, so I apologize for that. So, and I see Tamara said that same other question there. So I think that we are kind of caught up. If I missed your question, then make sure you ask again. It does not bother me one bit that you ask more than once. I would rather you ask and get your answers. So if I missed any, just re-ask. Okay, so let's go back over to the software and let's see a little bit more about patches or appliques this time. And I'm going to talk to you about these other icons here. So, and before we go to patches, let me start a new page here. And let's talk about what these other icons are. So the second icon here says charm design. If you click on that, these are built-in miniature versions of the other designs, and they're fill designs. So for instance, let me choose this cute little butterfly that we were working with here. And you can see that's all fill stitches instead of applique. And if we go back and choose our butterfly that we were working with, you can see that it is larger and it has an applique component. So isn't that cool to have a miniature version of the design? So you might not use them together, but you might need a smaller version and don't want it to be applique. But in the case of this little butterfly here, I think that it would be cute. You could mirror image it and look like it's kind of further away because it is a smaller version. So Patch and Applique Maker, you can import designs and combine them with any of the built-in designs or just work with those designs. So to bring in a design, you would simply choose File and Merge. And when you choose Merge, you would locate that design on your computer. So I'm just going to go to one that maybe we have here. Like, let's just choose and these are all numbered, as you can see here. So I'll just choose one, and you can see that here comes that design. So you locate the design and then click to bring it in, and then you could work with this. So now this design is a fill stitch design. If I wanted to turn it into a patch, I certainly could by adding an outline around it, just like we did before, and maybe increase that a little bit so it's a little further away. And then look, you can see here it's following my stitches. So if I do that round option, it'll smooth everything out for me, and click OK. And now I have that outline. So does anybody remember what we did with that outline to turn it into a patch? We turned that outline into an applique. So if I click Applique, I now have my outline. And if you are going to make this a patch, I would change your settings to either pre-cut or just a regular patch design. So if I do the pre-cut patch is what I use mostly, but you can choose the marrow patch as well. And let's see what that does. So when I click marrow patch and I click OK, look at that stitching. That is mimicking the stitch that we get from a marrow machine. Those marrow machine stitches that's that stitch that you see around a professional patch and you wonder what makes that stitch. So that's a marrow machine, and this stitch is actually unique to our Patch and Applique Maker software that mimics that marrow stitch. So isn't that cool? So you can have that particular type of stitch around the outside. So now we've chosen a design, we turned it into a patch, we changed it to a marrow stitch, and then we could actually just save this, take it to our embroidery machine to stitch it out. So okay, so let's start a new page here. So we talked about the charms. We talked about the built-in designs. We just imported a design of our own. And then now let's talk about the applique shapes. So applique shapes are open shapes. You can see as I kind of scroll down through here, there's all kinds of things to choose from. And these shapes, when you select one, let's do maybe just one of these fun little shapes here. You can see that it automatically turns it into the applique. So this has a placement. If I watch my slow redraw, I get a placement, a tack down, and that satin stitch. So this design could be used as an applique to applique a piece of fabric onto another item. Or if I want to turn this into a patch, I would recommend changing this setting to your patch applique option or your pre-cut patch option so that it changes that tack down to the zigzag and also insets those stitches. But these patch shapes are also great for importing your own design. So let's I'm going to go over here to, these are some free designs that are built into the software. And I can say, bring this design in. Now, if I wanted to make this design fit on this patch, I could just simply click and drag to resize it. And now you've got this cute little patch that you could change the colors. This could be a birthday congrats. It could be an anniversary congrats, a new baby congrats, whatever you want. If you want to put a different word here, let's talk about over in the sequence view. So this is all grouped together. So if I ungroup it here on my toolbar, this is the same for all Dime software, ungroup, and that actually breaks apart these separate pieces. So now I can actually select just the words by themselves and either press the delete on my keyboard, or you could also just press this cut and it would remove it too. But look, my little strings are broken. So I'm actually going to just move those up so that they touch to kind of give me that look that they were all together. If I select everything, I'm going to group it back together so I don't accidentally separate it. Now we've got these cute little balloons. Let's add our own text. Okay, so choose the text tool here or push the T on your keyboard. Click on the screen and then type your text. For this one, let's say happy birthday. I'm going to put happy and birthday and then click apply. Okay, so there's my text. Now this is the same for every Dime software. Look at all those little shapes around my text. Each one of those do something different. The best way to learn is to click and play. So let's just play. This center circle here will allow you to drag the center of the text, convex or concave, whichever you want. Okay. The shapes on the end will let you kind of make that like a megaphone kind of shape. And if you do a right mouse click, you can reset so it goes back to normal. On the end here, we've got a rotation circle. Will let us rotate. I'm going to do an undo. These double arrows are resizing. So if I click, this will resize the entire text. Proportionately, but this double arrow here will let me resize longer, so I can stretch it to fit an area or shrink it to fit an area. So the shapes all do something different, so play with them. If you click right on that diamond in the center, it'll allow you to just do some edits to that one design, so, or that one letter, so I can move it, I can reposition it, I can rotate it. I'm going to put it back to what it was. And then those double arrows allow you to change the space between the letters. So if you don't like how close these are, you can click and drag to kind of separate those out to make it a little more spaced out. So play with all of those shapes. Now I'm going to go to my select tool here and just give you another tip. Every Dime software, if it contains the ability to do text, you can click the text tool to see all those little shapes again. So this is your text tool and your text selection tool. And we also have the ability to click the select tool. Now notice when I do the select tool, a lot of those shapes go away and I get a little bit different set of shapes. So those shapes now do something a little bit different. I can skew my letters. So that kind of looks like cursive, right? So I can skew them and that works with any design. So you can do the same thing this direction as well. So just play with those shapes. And if you don't see the shapes, if they look like they go away, try clicking on your text tool and clicking on your text, and then you'll see those come back. Now let's put this on a circle and put it around our balloon. So I'm going to say my type instead of normal, I'm going to say circle and click apply. And now I can click and drag this to kind of bring that in smaller. And I'm actually going to reduce the size. So I can either reduce it here to be a smaller font, or I could use these built-in handles. So they all, again, do something different. So if I adjust those, that makes it a little bit smaller. Let's zoom in here so we can get this all set up. And I can also rotate this around my circle, just like that. So let's do back over on the top, and I'll show you something else you can do with this. You can also separate the text and put one on the bottom. So when you have circle selected, if you put happy and birthday on two different lines, it'll put it on the bottom. And so you can, let's make this a little bit small. I'm trying to get it to fit in my shape here. There we go. And then I'm going to make my circle a little bit smaller. Just like that. Look at that. How cute is that? Now let me select everything on the screen, and we will do a vertical and a horizontal center to get it all lined up. Now this, for the balloons, it's actually moving based on these strings too, whereas I think those strings would be cute if they stitch kind of behind the letters like that. So, and we could always change this to a different color by doing a right mouse click. So look at that. Isn't that cute? And so this design is actually a free design that is over in your Perfect Embroidery Pro here. These are just some free designs that you get when you install Embroidery Toolshed, so you can play around with these features if you'd like. So the last thing I'll show you here are these built-in templates. So when you click this, that looks like a little award. You open this, click open, and these are some built-in patches that are ready to be customized. So you can click on any of them. Like I'm going to do the I blank 2, and then you can see that there's a dash line. If I click the change option, it opens up my charms, which remember, those are our miniature designs. I'm going to go to holiday and Valentine, and I can put a heart there. Now, if I click on this second empty box here and do change, I can go and locate an item. So I'm going to choose this book for I love to read. And then I'm set to go. Now, I could change this I and the 2, but not sure what else I'd put there. But if I just click apply and put that on the screen, then this is ready to be saved. So those are built-in templates that you can customize to make those patches. Okay, so really easy, right? Now, that is all about patches, but remember, a lot of those things actually apply to your appliques as well. So I'm going to start a new page, and let me show you one thing with the appliques I think you're going to love. So let's go to the gardening, and let's choose this flower here. Or maybe this one. And now this is an applique design. Now, would this make a good patch? So tell me over in the chat, this flower, do you think it would make a good patch? Now, what I see is that I have a few options. I could ungroup this, and I could delete the leaves and the stem, and the remaining flower makes a good patch. So I see Dalu said yes, it'd make a good patch. Exactly. But if you really wanted the stem, so I'm just going to do undo here to put back what we deleted. If you want to make the whole thing a patch, then what I might do is select it and create that outline that we have done now a couple of times, and click our preview. I think that looks nice. Maybe down here at the bottom, you can really see that bevel, how it makes that kind of sharp edge. So if you want it to be round, you can change to round and click OK. And now remember, we want to convert that to our applique by clicking applique. So now we could make a patch this way, so that this satin stitch stem is actually enclosed in the design. So, but I'm going to do undo, and let's just work with this as an applique. So I wanted to show you that you do have the ability to change the stitch type. So I'm going to ungroup this, and let's just select the outside here of our flower. So over here in the type, these are our properties over here to the top right. When you select one part of your design, it'll give you the available properties that you can make changes to. So this type says it's a satin outline, but I can actually change that to different types of stitching. So there's a tackle twill, which looks like our zigzag stitch. We have an E-stitch, which is our buttonhole stitch or blanket stitch you might be used to seeing. So you can change it to an E-stitch. You can change it to a decorative stitch, and actually change that and motif, and it'll add it around that outside. I'm going to change that to an orange color so we can see it. So how cute is that, right? And you can also change to a special symbols. And this you can select by clicking the ... and clicking select. And now let's choose something like this ladybug. So it puts the ladybugs around the outside. I can remove the steel stitch. Right now it has a steel and my ladybug. So if I take that away, my ladybugs will be right at the edge of my applique. Now that's kind of hard to see because of the red on red. So let's choose a yellow here. So now you can see those flowers. You can also change to a run stitch, or a bean stitch. And each of these are true for any of these designs that are built in. Now, if you're bringing in and you're creating your own type of applique, you can create whatever type of stitch you want. So really neat, right? So that is something that you can consider. Now, when I'm doing a patch, I really want this satin stitch or that patch stitch that mimics the marrow, like that right there. So our patches, we don't usually have other type of stitches. Not that it doesn't mean that you can't, but the normal would be the satin or either that marrow stitch. So and if we zoom in here, you can kind of see that difference. So here's our regular satin stitch on the left, and on the right, we've got that marrow stitch. So what do you think? Is that cool or what? So now this design here is an applique design. So remember, if we go over here in our properties, we can see that each of these applique, it says applique, applique. So if you hold down your control key and select each of those parts that say applique, then we've got one more here, I think, under the this area right here for our orange. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different applique pieces. And I click on that cutter tool. You can see that there's the cut file for my leaves. There's the cut file for the center of my flower. And there's the cut file for my main flower. Now, just as you guys asked earlier, if you click save, you can save to the format of your digital cutter. But if you don't have a digital cutter, just choose paper. So letter size paper. Now, when I click save, it's actually going to save this as a PDF. So you can see it automatically reverts to PDF, and then you could print those shapes and then cut them out with your scissors. So you do not have to have a digital cutter to pre-cut. So really fun, lots of things that you could do. And of course, this just scratches the surface. I'll go even more in depth next time we do software success, which will be on August the 15th. So let's see if we have any questions about any of that. So I see here, Joanne says, can you stitch through patch attach? You actually can, Joanne. There's no problem whatsoever stitching through it. But most of the time we apply it after the patch is stitched. But if you have an instance that you feel like would be best applied before, you can stitch through that product as well. And then we have a question here. Facebook user says, I purchased a bundle with the applique and patch software, and it was Aquamesh, Badge Master, and Stable Stick. So those particular items are not dime products, so I'm not 100% familiar with all of them. It says none of those items were mentioned today. That's because Aquamesh, Badge Master, and Stable Stick are not dime products. So dime products would be the heavy duty water soluble stabilizer, and we have a product that's a wash away called Sew and Wash. So those products are not dime products. That's why they were not mentioned today. So not sure which brand they are. So hopefully that helps with that question as well. So, and then Tamara says, does a JPEG formatted logo need to be converted to an SVG so you can import it in the software? That would be best. Tamara, if you imported it as an SVG, you have more control over converting it to the stitches and things. If you don't have an SVG, you can import a JPEG into Patch and Applique Maker, but then you would need to trace it with the artwork tools. And I'll actually go over that in 2 weeks when we are back here for software success. If you have an image that you want to convert, you can import the image, but then it does require tracing. If you have the ability to auto convert it to an SVG, which some of our other dime software does, I definitely would do that because it would be easier for sure. So very good question. So Harriet Ann Palmer says, on the larger butterfly, can you convert the applique to stitches? Not in Patch and Applique Maker, but Harriet Ann, if you do have like our Perfect Embroidery Pro, you could convert that to a fill stitch if you like. But Patch and Applique Maker is only about patches and appliques, so you only have the ability to create those type of stitches for appliques and patches. But if you have other dime software, you know they work great together. So absolutely. So, and then Norma says she just called customer service and got my question answered immediately. That's great, Norma. Our customer service team is fantastic. And let's see what else we've got here. Other questions. So I'm just looking for those question marks quickly. And so Brenda says she's losing her feed, silly internet. She has to rewatch. So yes, that's a really good point. You can rewatch, any of our live presentations over on our YouTube channel or on Facebook. So wherever you go for the original one, you can also go for the replay. So love it. So just checking through to see if there's any other questions. So we answered that one about the JPEG already, I think. If I missed any, then let me know. This says, what's the difference between patch and applique and cut and stitch? So I have cut and stitch. So Patch and Applique Maker has really a lot of features that are going to help you with patches. The cut and stitch software is primarily for use with your digital cutter. And because we do use appliques and we sometimes use our digital cutter to cut our fabric, you do have the ability to cut out your fabric pieces with the cut and stitch, save those file formats. But the cut and stitch software is primarily for working with your digital cutter and those rhinestone features, whereas the Patch and Applique Maker, I would say the biggest difference are all the patch specific features in the Patch and Applique Maker. So hopefully that helps you, Cynthia. And Tamara said, which one? I'm not sure which one you're talking about, Tamara. So make sure if you'll clarify before we can go, I can answer that. And then Natalie says, did you increase the size for use with the cutter? No. So all of Dime software, when you create an applique, Natalie, it creates a placement line, and the tack down line is slightly inset. So we cut based on our placement line, which is already a larger piece. So in any of our Dime software, you do not have to increase the size of the cut to work with the applique. Now, if you import a design from another designer and you notice that the other designer has put the placement and the tack down run stitch right on top of each other, then you probably definitely want to increase just slightly at your cutter to make sure that that stitch grabs it. So I definitely would recommend that. So. And then Tamara says, my summer break ends tomorrow and I'll be back at work during our lives next summer. So how do I ask questions when watching? So Tamara, what I would do, we don't, after it's done live, we don't have any way to ask those questions after the live viewing. But what I would recommend is if you join our Facebook group, if you haven't already, it's our inspiration software users. So if you just Google that or search that on Facebook, go to Dime Inspiration Software Users, join that group, and then you will actually find me and our other educators over there to be able to answer your questions directly. And you can simply say, I watched the presentation, wasn't able to join live, so I have this question, and then that person that answers might even be able to go back and look for that option. So, or that question, to see exactly what's being shown. So Ellen says, Perfect Embroidery Pro automatically have the patch feature. It does not. That is only in Patch and Applique Maker, Ellen. That patch feature is specific to Patch and Applique Maker. Which programs will convert to an SVG, a JPEG to an SVG? That's our cut and stitch, or Perfect Embroidery Pro has the ability to auto vectorize a raster image to an artwork. So Perfect Embroidery Pro or either cut and stitch software. Paula says, is there a special price for the package in these products? Yes, that's actually a very great segue. Paula, thank you so much. But I do want to say, let me head back over here to my presentation. I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, like us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube. That way you'll get notifications when we go live. And so if you're unsure of how to do that, let's watch this little short video of how to do that.
In this video, we'll show you how to subscribe to a YouTube channel and follow a Facebook page. Let's start with YouTube. First, open your web browser and navigate to youtube.com. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Click on it and go to the channel page. Once on the channel page, click the subscribe button. And that's it. You're now subscribed to the channel. Now, let's move on to Facebook. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. When you find the page you want to follow, click on it and go to the page. Once on the page, click the three dots on the right side and select the follow button. And that's it. Now you're following the page. Thanks for watching.
So make sure you go over and do that and be notified. And then also, if you're not already, join our Facebook user group. So our Designs in Machine Embroidery page is different than the user group for software, that Dime user group. The link was posted in the chat, so it should get you right to it. If you join there, ask your specific questions there. And not only is our education team over there, but also we have thousands of knowledgeable users that are extremely helpful in answering your questions. So anytime you want to purchase any Dime software, I always recommend checking your local Inspiration software dealer. That's what we call our Dime dealers that carry our software. But we do also have it on our site for $399.99 for the patch and applique maker that I am talking about today. And it comes with 3 PDF tutorials and a 30-minute private tutoring session from one of our education team members. So you certainly are welcome to check that out. Now, if you want to see a little bit more about it, in 2 weeks on August the 15th, I'm going to go even deeper into the Patch and Applique Maker software program. We'll talk more about editing designs, and I will import an image to talk about creating a design from an image. Now, I mentioned that we have other software that does that automatically, but Patch and Applique Maker, we will trace it, and you'll see exactly how to do that in 2 weeks. Also, if you have not used Patch and Applique Maker and you would like to play around with it in our embroidery tool shed, in that shopping area, if you click the options button next to that program, it gives you the option to try any Dime program. You can try for free. The only feature that is disabled is save. You can create, you can play, you just will not be able to save your design. You will have to obviously purchase the program to be able to save it, to stitch it out. So play with it. Come back in 2 weeks. If you have questions, let me know. So I wanted to say thank you so much to everyone that joined today. I hope you guys learned something new. And please join me back here in 2 weeks on August the 15th for the second part of Patch and Applique Maker at 1 p.m. Central. So I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.